John Cena has officially announced his retirement from WWE. All that and a lot more coming up. Welcome to McGuire on Wrestling.
It's showtime!
Welcome to McGuire on Wrestling.
What do you guys want to talk about?
Let's give the people what they want. Professional wrestling
With Mike McGuire.
The happiest Canadian camper in the world.
Tell me when I'm telling lies.
Give me a hell yeah.
Just when you think things are slowing down in pro wrestling, a story comes along and just drops another little bombshell. Yes, it was announced this week. Heck, just this past Saturday night, that John Cena will be retiring from performing in WWE next year. We got a lot to dissect on this story. There's a lot to talk about with that, but there's been a bunch of other stuff going on in the world of professional wrestling. It is a great pleasure to be here with you wherever you're listening, either on the radio or online through various radio stations across Canada or at McGuireShow.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for liking, subscribing, adding, doing whatever you got to do to get this in your ears every week. It is greatly appreciated. And we try and give you a fun show for about an hour every week, talking about some of the fun things, talking about some of the more serious stories. And yes, there are serious stories in the world of professional wrestling. If you're just tuning in going, what is this? This is what this is. We talk about some of the behind-the-scenes stuff. We talk about some of the stuff we see on TV, and we share stories from actual pro wrestlers, promoters, people related with the business, and it's a ton of fun. We got all that for you this week. We start off with the bombshell news again of John Cena announcing his retirement. Then we're going to meet an indie promoter and wrestler who's doing some great things for himself and his company in his home promotion up in Edmonton, Alberta. And we're going to talk about some of the things that happen, including WWE Money in the Bank. We always love having you be a part of the show, either in conversation on our Facebook page, which you can find at Team MOW, McGuire on Wrestling, or you can also follow me on all the socials at McGuire Show. This show is also distributed through several radio station websites. A big thanks to 106.1 The Goat in Lloydminster, also to the radio stations I work at here in Lethbridge, Alberta, with 98.1 The Ranch, 94.1 CJOC, and where this show also broadcasts on the radio at CKXU-FM. If you'd like more details or have any questions about the show, being a part of it in any way, drop me an email, McGuireShow@yahoo.com. Coming up this week, John Cena calling it a career in WWE in a year. We'll look back at his historic run. Plus, WWE's Money in the Bank is in the books. We have an on-site report for you from the show. AEW is returning to Canada, specifically Calgary this week. We've got the latest for a stacked Dynamite and Collision show. Plus, it's the return of the McGuire on Wrestling Indie Spotlight. This week, you'll meet a guy who's recently appeared for GCW, Edmonton, Alberta's Harlon Abbott. We'll talk about his career going from wrestler to promoter. Also, Dave Meltzer is here from the Wrestling Observer to take us through the headlines. But first, let's get to them. The 5 biggest stories of the week. Here is the 5 count.
You want to hear the breaking news?
Well, John Cena has announced his retirement, but it won't be right away.
2025 Royal Rumble will be my last. The 2025 Elimination Chamber will be my last. And I'm here tonight to announce that in Las Vegas, WrestleMania 2025 will be the last WrestleMania I compete in.
Later in the press conference that followed Money in the Bank, Cena confirmed that his schedule will go past WrestleMania of next year.
It's not going to end at WrestleMania. WrestleMania will be my last WrestleMania. But hopefully, if everything goes according to plan, we're going straight through from January to December. We're going to try to do a long list of dates. I think right now, tentatively, it's hovering in the mid-30s to 40s because I'm still going to try to juggle a lot of stuff that's going on. And that'll be the end of my in-ring competition. Now, a part of this business plan, I guess, that I proposed and they accepted, thank you, they, was me remaining in the WWE family in some capacity for an extended time to come. I've always said to the audience that the WWE is my home and I love it. And just because I physically feel I'm at my end doesn't mean I need to distance myself from something I love.
keeping with this massive story, CM Punk, who only recently returned to WWE himself, was asked about Cena's departure.
Cena, I think, to my career, means a lot. I don't think there's many people up in that rare air where if you talk about my career, I feel you have to talk about John. And it makes me feel proud that I think if you talk about John's career, I think you have to talk about me. You know, we're married in that respect. So proud of him. He gets to go out on his terms. I know that's important. I'm looking forward to what he does. And I told him that, you know, if it's going to be one more time, we got to do it at least one more time.
AEW returns to Canada this week for a joint Dynamite broadcast and collision taping from the Calgary Scotiabank Saddle Dome. Matches include the finals in the Owen Hart Foundation tournament, seeing Bryan Danielson face Hangman Adam Page, and Willow Nightingale will take on Mariah May. The winners of each of those matches get world title matches at All In London. Also announced for the show, Dynamite Kid Tommy Billington makes his return to AEW Collision. He's set for a match against Konosuke Takeshita. And if that's not enough AEW for you just yet, we have a special guest that'll be joining us for an early interview this week on the McGuire on Wrestling podcast feed. Make sure you're subscribed. Just look up McGuire on Wrestling wherever you get your podcasts, and that'll be downloading for you instantly this Tuesday. And it's funny, this is an idea that we talked about last week on this very show. Dave Meltzer and I were bandying about the idea of AEW and New Japan bringing in the Stardom, CMLL, and Ring of Honor brands, which they all kind of either work with or have under their umbrellas, to do one big show together. That show is now going to be happening January the 5th, the day after Wrestle Kingdom in the Tokyo Dome. It will be Wrestle Dynasty. Now, what's equally interesting about this show is that not only will it be all 5 brands being recognized, but this will be the first time that AEW does a presentation as a company from Japan. The show is expected to be available on all streaming sources and pay-per-view channels where you get either AEW or New Japan Pro Wrestling. More details are obviously expected to roll out in the coming months.
McGuire on Wrestling.
Joining me on the show now is a guy who was at SmackDown and Money in the Bank this past weekend in the 6. Team MOW member on our Facebook page and podcast listener, Douglas Stanford Grandy, is on the line. Douglas, first of all, how are you feeling after a busy WWE weekend?
I enjoyed last night immensely. I've been to a handful of pay-per-view PLE events in my life, and this would rate up there with some of the best ones. I'm not saying it was the best of any of them, but it's one of the better ones that I've been to live personally myself.
Well, and we never ask you how much you spent, but I always ask this question. If you bought a ticket, do you feel like you got your money's worth?
We did buy the combo ticket. The way I looked at it was when we divided it because we were going to just go to the 2 shows, so when we divided it by even 2, that put it into the price range of what I was willing to pay. If I was just going to go see Money in the Bank, you know, that was going to put the ticket price in the range that I would have paid for that. And the same thing with SmackDown. So I'm satisfied with the price.
Okay.
The seats weren't the greatest. We were way up there, but that's what was affordable for us.
That's part of the thing with an arena show, right? The higher up you go, that's just the way it goes sometimes. But
yeah.
Okay, I have to ask you this about the mood in the show when John Cena comes out and announces that this is going to be it. Next year is going to be his last year. What was the feeling like for you, and what did you feel like the reaction was in the building?
First thing, if you don't mind me talking about, was just before, I didn't know John Cena was coming out yet, but it was right after the match that was before that. That's when I decided to go to a quick bathroom break.
Oh, and Douglas, no!
No. Hold on. I didn't miss anything.
Okay.
At that point, I could hear Trish is out to the ring, and all of a sudden, I couldn't quite hear the words she announced, but all of a sudden you could hear the music. Mm-hmm. And the bathroom cleared out. Everyone, oh my God. Everyone was WTF, and they ran out of there. So suddenly I had a spot to do my business, which was handy. But so I said to somebody there, I said, well, John Cena is still popular enough that he can clear a bathroom and a concession stand.
Wild. That is wild.
But I did make it back when he was just beginning to talk about, just as I was getting back there, he was getting into what he was going to be doing next year. And yeah, there was a lot of, at least in the area I was, there was a lot of moaning and, oh, no, and I don't know if emotional is the word, but people took it very seriously anyways, yeah.
And we'll just go ahead and say it, too. There were a lot of unwashed hands leaving that bathroom. All right.
I didn't think of that, but yeah.
All right. Well, you know what, Douglas? Thank you for your on-site recap there, and appreciate you listening and supporting the show and following along. And thank you very much for giving us a feel for what it was like to be at Money at the Bank this year.
I enjoyed it. It's one of my, like I say, one of the best events I've been to in a while.
Still to come, the Wrestling Observer's Dave Meltzer and I will talk about John Cena's retirement, what could be some of the possible plays moving forward there, as well as what AEW has in store for their return to Canada, specifically Calgary and the Stampede this coming Wednesday. Also, it was this week back in 1996 that the face of professional wrestling on television would change forever.
If you're here, you're a part of Team MOW. Join us on Facebook at Team MOW McGuire on Wrestling and get in on the conversation. This is McGuire on Wrestling.
CKXUFM 88.3 in Lethbridge is Southern Alberta's true alternative radio station.
The cream of the crop! Nobody does it better.
Proudly carrying McGuire on Wrestling every week.
Yeah.
If you're looking for something different to listen to,
This is going to be a slobber knocker!
check out our NCRA award-winning lineup of programs or stream us anytime at ckxu.com.
Welcome back to McGuire on Wrestling.
There's a lot of prominent wrestling birthdays this coming week from July 7th till 13th. Happy birthday going out to the likes of Big Sexy, Kevin Nash, Wildman, Mark Marrow, Shelton Benjamin, Dwayne Gill, also known as Gilberg, Jeff Cobb, Hurricane Helms, Sami Zayn, and Brock Lesnar, just to name a few. Also this week on July 11th, it's Tyson Kidd's birthday. TJ Wilson. If you're not following him on social media, you should, and you should wish him a happy birthday because he will likely do the same for you. He is the birthday king. Also this week in professional wrestling, it was July 7th of 1996. WCW's Bash at the Beach took place in Daytona Beach, Florida. The main event was the hostile takeover of WCW as former WWE stars Scott Hall and Kevin Nash would face Sting, the Macho Man Randy Savage, and Lex Luger. Now Hall and Nash were teasing a third mystery man, which would be revealed towards the end of the match.
Hulk Hogan arrived. Hulk. What is he doing? My God! Is he the third man?
He's the third man!
What the hell is going on here?
Hulk Hogan has betrayed WCW! He is the third man
Look at
in this
this
picture!
Oh my God! What the hell is going on? Oh my God!
Of course, this turn would become a thing of legend, create the NWO, and lead to WCW's eventual domination over WWE for the famed 83 weeks during the Monday Night War.
It's time for the Wrestling Observer Insider with Dave Meltzer, McGuire on Wrestling.
Well, no matter how well you lay plans out, sometimes a bombshell announcement just changes everything for you. Dave, I'm sure after last night, what you're writing for this week's newsletter is going to be changing a little bit regarding John Cena.
Yeah, I actually have a story that'll be up on the website. Probably by the time anyone listens to this, it should be up momentarily. So, yeah.
A shocking announcement in some ways, in other ways, not really, because he's been leading up to it for some while now. He's been saying he's been seeing the end of the road for some time. So I guess this is it. What do we know about the specifics of his plans moving forward? We do know next year is going to be his last year, but it's not going to end at WrestleMania, right?
Yeah, I think the idea is to go. He kind of gave the impression that he was going to finish up in December of next year, December 2025, work 30 to 40 dates over the year, which would mean PLEs, it'd mean house shows, TVs, maybe not too many house shows, but a lot of TVs. Got the impression they would be mostly on Raw to help the transition to Netflix. Mm-hmm. And probably got a hell of an offer. I mean, the thing is before when he switched from wrestling to the movies, it became far more lucrative to be in the movies than in wrestling. So He was preparing for his new career. And now what we've seen with TKO is for certain people, they're willing to spend an incredible amount of money, comparable perhaps to, it's hard to say for acting, but comparable in the sense Dwayne Johnson is making enough money now from wrestling to go along with acting. So, I mean, it's like when he was younger, it made no sense to be doing this. Now it makes all the sense in the world. Plus, he's on the board. And with John, John will probably have some sort of a role forever with the company. It all kind of adds up. He can make a ton of money. He's going to have to cut back on the acting if he's really going to do 30 to 40 dates, though. I mean, he did a run when the actor strike was on, but as soon as the strike was over, then he was back at work. And he has a lot of roles, but apparently he's willing to cut back on enough next year to be in, the monthly pay-per-views. That means no movies during those periods. He's making a commitment. It's the right time for WWE. It's, you don't want to push it much longer for him because he said he was never going to wrestle 50. He's 47 now, so it looks like he'll be done at 48. And it was funny with Punk, because Punk was talking about it and how his career is so linked with Cena. And he was skeptical, like everyone should be when it comes to pro wrestlers and retirement announcements, because Cena said that he wouldn't referee, he wouldn't do anything after. But everyone who says that, 95% end up coming back many times.
Amazing what happens when that dump truck full of money keeps showing up, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing is with him more than others is that he doesn't need that dump truck full of money because he's dump truck full of money in his other career.
I was thinking about that on my way in this morning. Actually, I was thinking, this is a guy who could viably turn down a giant Saudi offer to go out there and work. I mean, it would be a personal decision at that point, I think.
Well, he went back though.
I don't mean like in the upcoming year. I mean like if he were to call it quits, like retire, like he wouldn't pull a Sean or he wouldn't pull a Taker or something like this, where like when he's done, he's done.
Who's to know how much money will be on the table in 5 years to pull a Sean? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Sean, Sean's not a movie star. You know what I mean? Like John probably has way more money than Sean. And it was hard. Sean turned down a lot of money for a lot of years. I don't know why he did the comeback, and probably I think that there's a part of him that regrets doing it, but it happened. With John, I mean, Dwayne was never going to come back and wrestle serious matches, after years ago. He had turned down that. And now here he is, much older. We know he's going to be in Mania next year. And, unless something unforeseen happens. And I mean, he's committed to the company now. I mean, they frickin' just made a documentary, that was all about glorifying him.
That's another question I have for you. He says, I'm always going to be involved in WWE. Is this a thing where you could see John Cena possibly even joining the board of directors for TKO like Dwayne did?
I wouldn't rule it out. I don't know. That's Ari Emanuel's decision. And, but I wouldn't rule something like that out at all. I wouldn't rule out, him getting a contract worth tons and tons of money to just be part of the family and to do whatever's needed to be done. But just merchandise, his merchandise alone is going to sell for years to come. So yeah, that's part of it too.
So let's fantasy book a little bit here, Dave. I mean, you got a year of John Cena. A lot of people are already asking this question. In this year, do you buy the WWE's numbers? Because again, this number has always been disputed, but do you go to break the Cena Ric Flair world title tie? And do you see him possibly getting another run as champion in this next year?
Well, it was teased in his, I don't think he wants to say it because he didn't say it, but the idea, he did mention, Rumble and Chamber being important as his two ways to get to a title match at Mania. So that sounded to me like it was in the cards. And, I mean, there's no dispute. It's like, there's whatever. There's real history and then there's WWE history. And WWE history will set the record. In real history, he can't. I mean, Ric Flair's real number is well over 16, but WWE used the number 16 and John Cena's at 16 too. And I could absolutely see them doing a big deal at WrestleMania next year where he breaks Ric Flair's record and everyone will accept that as breaking a record. And they can market him as that until somebody comes along in another generation that beats his record. For a long time, call him the all-time greatest. It's probably better for them to have a guy who's in his late 40s with a record than a guy who's in his mid to late 70s.
Obviously, they want to get some fresh faces on John Cena here. Who do you think would be someone who'd be first in line here? It does appear like they're doing a breakup between Theory and Waller. So maybe that's something down the line. They try the Austin Theory thing again, or
it could be anyone. Like in hindsight, it kind of looks funny. Theory being the one who beat him at that WrestleMania, just because Theory didn't really I don't say benefit from it. He probably benefited from a little bit, but then he fell back into a much lower level. But, do you do the dream matches with one time only with Cody Rhodes? Definitely, there's different ways. Before, his role was always to put somebody over that, like Bray Wyatt or Roman Reigns, different people who they were grooming, put them over, like Theory. Here, I think a lot of it is going to be focused on him beating people early, and then maybe at the end, putting somebody big over, like maybe December he puts over Cody. I don't know. Whether it's a Braun Breaker or him losing a Braun Breaker would be kind of like the way that they booked him for the last 5 years, where you have a guy who you think is going to be a big star going forward and he beats Cena and to give him credibility. And certainly towards the end, he should lose to somebody, I guess, although Sting didn't lose to anybody at the end.
Yeah, back in the day, it would be putting over the honors, passing on someone else. But now we've seen that precedent set where Sting gets to go out on a high note and that sort of thing. So yeah, I guess anything really is possible here.
You can do anything. And again, with him, like he's basically a guy who says, I'll do whatever they ask. And it's probably true as opposed to Dwayne, it's just different. But he'll have veto power over everything. It's not like he's going to do something he doesn't want to do. Yeah. With Dwayne, I think Dwayne's very specific with his vision of, I want to do this. And that's what's going to happen, is what he wants.
You're listening to McGuire on Wrestling on the radio and online, and Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer and WrestlingObserver.com joins us as he does every week here. We're talking about the retirement announcement from John Cena, but it's funny that you bring up Dwayne Johnson and desires moving forward, his story, his narrative. That WrestleMania documentary finally came out, the behind the curtain of WrestleMania XL, just slightly over an hour worth of story here. Your thoughts coming out of that show?
It's funny because I just was in contact with someone in WWE. We kind of had identical thoughts, which is that it was Dwayne's documentary. I mean, it's very obvious when you watch it. It's not what happened, but it's the story that they want out. It's, Dwayne is going to put his story out, and that was his story. I mean, it's the basics are true. It's like he did have full control over everything. He did make all the decisions, he did make the decision to go heel, everything. I mean, that's all true, but there was a lot of stuff behind the scenes, a lot of stuff that I thought that maybe they touched on some of it, and they touched on like none of it. It was, none of the backstage stuff, no explanations on anything, you didn't even get it was just, this is the story, and the fans decided this, and we were so happy that we could do it, and in the end everyone was happy. And look, they had a super successful show, and they served all their masters. They still could.
So when you say none of the backstage stuff, what was missing?
All of the infighting going on and all the politicking going on from January and February on what's going to happen, and everything that was happening. They were like they didn't talk about how they were going to get Cody out with the injury angle. They didn't talk about how they couldn't do the injury angle because Punk got hurt. So then Cody was needed for WrestleMania. So they're going to go with Cody and Seth. People who didn't want Rock, Roman, that Cody was promised it. They did kind of tell you Cody was promised it and then told the day of the Rumble that he wasn't getting it. And then it switched again. I mean, they did tell you that part, but so much of the really interesting stuff behind the scenes, I knew they wouldn't touch on that. Too inside baseball for them. They wanted the nice story, but it was more than I expected. I mean, it was very much about, Dwayne Johnson is know-all and everything, and he called all the shots, and Triple H was fine with everything, and everyone got along. And but I mean, like the idea that we were testing the market, and it's just like when he went out there and did that head of the table line. I mean, they'd been negotiating for Mania for some time without telling anyone before he went out there. And he didn't go out there cold, let's test the water. I mean, it was like almost a done deal, because it was a done deal 2 days later. The signature was on the contract January 3rd. So, and then but they didn't talk about that. And then the whole thing of, just every aspect of it. Never really told you why the thing didn't happen at SoFi. They did this thing of where Dwayne said that, well, we wanted to wait until the merger. The problem is the SoFi show, the merger idea was finalized in April of last year. Dwayne pulled out the months, 6-7 months before when Dwayne pulled out, Vince wasn't even back. So it had nothing to do with the merger. It had to do with Dwayne, for whatever reason. What I was told was that he felt that with all of his commitments, he had to start the XFL and plenty of other things. He just didn't have the time to get into ring shape. He didn't want to go in at less than his best. And when it happened for the Los Angeles show, he said, hey, you know what? I mean, we'll revisit it next year and maybe we'll do it in Philadelphia. And when he said that, people who I knew said, okay, he's never going to do it, because he was ever going to do it was going to be in LA, and they just thought the Philadelphia was lip service. It just all worked out. And I guess he just felt he did have the time to do it.
Either way, I mean, we can nitpick and, fine tune all our things about this. I mean, at the end of the day, we did get a pretty cool main event. We got a cool version of The Rock. And
the show was a huge success.
Yeah.
The pivot was a big success. It all worked out great. I mean,
I guess to close on that topic, though, do you think the documentary was really necessary at this point, or could we have just let it lie and be what it is?
Well, nothing's necessary. They wanted to do it. Obviously got held up for a long time, so that had to be, you can look at the documentary and the finished product of the documentary, and you could tell by the nature of what it was that very much like the affirmation of Dwayne and Paul Levesque, was that those were the key people in it. And it's really interesting how you didn't see much of Roman Reigns in it, who was the champion. It was kind of like, he's there, but I mean, he was not really a key person in the documentary.
We're talking to Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer and WrestlingObserver.com. This is McGuire on Wrestling, and coming up next, Southern Alberta and all of Canada getting another visit from AEW. It's going to be a big week. We'll talk about that.
This is McGuire on Wrestling.
You got to stream the alternate commentary table. Every single Saturday, it's brought to you on the McGuire on Wrestling feed. I'm one half of your host, Dimitri Karolis, and I'm here with my partner, Mitch Hondras. Mitch, what is the alternate commentary table?
It's simple. It's the perspective of wrestling from the other side of the railing, the real fans.
That's right, the perspective that you need. You might have a little bit of fun, too. The alternate commentary table. Subscribe free now to the McGuire on Wrestling podcast feed wherever you get your podcast. Cha-cha!
The official soundtrack to Canada's only border city, 106.1 The GOAT. Stay connected with MyLloydMinsterNow.com.
Just put death by rock and roll.
The GOAT.
'Cause I'm a lone life and I'm nothing. Don't blame me,
A Lloydminster legend.
I listen all day.
Everything that rocks.
Time to rock.
106.1 The GOAT.
Welcome back to McGuire on Wrestling.
All Elite Wrestling is making its way back to Canada this Wednesday for a dual taping. Well, it's a live broadcast of AEW Dynamite, and then Collision follows afterwards. Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer and WrestlingObserver.com has been joining us, as he does every week. And Dave, a big week for AEW TV here. Lots expected. We've got Hangman Page going against Bryan Danielson in the finals for the Men's Owen tournament, and a lot more. AEW seems to be throwing everything they got here for this show.
Yeah, it's a big one. I mean, it's essentially their version of WrestleMania is All In, and the two of the main events are going to be decided on Wednesday night. Toni Storm's going to defend against either Mariah May or Willow Nightingale, the winner of the match on Wednesday, and Swerve Strickland's going to defend against either Bryan Danielson or Adam Page, the winner of that match on Wednesday. So you're getting the matches to determine those two championships this Wednesday, and plus they're working on the whole card. I'm sure that there'll be hints of other matches. The one thing this year at All In as compared to last year is this year looks to me like they got like the top of the card all done, and we're already heavily working on it, as opposed to last year where it felt like it was really coming together like the last 2-3 weeks. And they have to, because they have a lot of tickets to sell. Last year the tickets sold, as they would at a much faster rate. I mean, the ticket sales for this year are still excellent, but it's a different degree of excellent than last year, which was, record setting. This year won't be setting records, but this year will still be either the third or fourth biggest attendance ever in the UK. It's wrestling's been in the UK for 150 years. So that's still a pretty substantial number.
Oh, yeah. And that's just it. Like, will it be the massive number it was last time? Probably not, but it's still going to be.
Well, it won't be, and nobody expected it would be. There was no way. Yeah. You had the uniqueness of the first time ever. You weren't going to ever have that again. So, but look, they got 40,000 tickets sold. And they're a secondary promotion. The secondary promotion. They're not the main promotion. I mean, that's kind of unheard of. I don't think that there's ever been a time when the number 2 promotion that I can think of, as far as sold 40,000 tickets to a show. Maybe I don't know. Did WWE ever do that when WCW was on top? I don't remember if they did. Maybe for WrestleMania. I'm not sure.
I'm trying to remember if WCW was still on. Yeah, they were still on top when they had that huge Nitro, right? Yeah, that was part of the.
They did have the 2 Nitros were, as far as tickets sold, were both 35, 36.
Okay.
At the Georgia Dome, which were really impressive. The first one, WCW was still on top. The second one at the Georgia Dome, they were the number 2 promotion at that point. WWF had surpassed them. Yeah.
But wrestling was still so hot then. I mean,
wrestling was so hot. Yeah.
That was a totally different story. And you can argue that wrestling is still hot. It's just consumed differently. I feel like, I don't know. To me, the ticket numbers outweigh the TV ratings in my mind because of the number of people that just show up for wrestling in general.
Yeah, you have to if you look at TV ratings as a number and you compare it for any show from 20 years ago, it's ridiculous because it's just a different world. You have to compare TV ratings with this week's TV or this month's TV and what the standard is for TV. It's like people will look at, just as an example, like a TNA and AEW comparison. Okay. TNA, AEW on Wednesday, this last week they were number 1 for the night. And as far as entertainment shows, they're almost always top 5 for the week. TNA had double the viewership, years ago. And they were, I remember looking up, like, okay, what number were they? And they were like number 80 for the week. So that tells you the difference. It's like WWE used to do 7 million viewers on a great night, 5-6 million often, regularly. And now they may do 2 million the day after Mania and not much, and a little more than 2 on network TV, which is easier. But it's like, but they're way more popular. Like people will go with these ratings. Oh, they're not as popular as they were 5-10 years ago. And it's like, this is ridiculous. They're the most popular they've been since 2001. At maybe you could argue 2002, but I'd say 2001. Look at how quick they're selling tickets everywhere. And, they're setting records and higher ticket prices than ever. And these big shows, like they didn't do successful big shows now. Anytime, even in the Hogan era, they didn't do these kind of numbers.
And consumption is so different now. It used to be, let's all sit around the TV Monday night, whatever, watch TV, or in the 80s especially. But now, everybody carries around their viewing device, and that doesn't show up in TV ratings. You look at your phone, you can watch highlights from an entire pay-per-view on Twitter. You get those clips immediately. So even if you're not following along on weekly TV, you can still find out everything that happened, basically, unless you're getting into the minutiae details of exact moment. Crazy how we consume things.
More people watch the big shows than ever before. I think I had all the Mania numbers when they came out as far as like the actual viewership. Millions of people watched Mania in the United States, and that's a lot more than used to watch it in the pay-per-view era or in the Hogan era by leaps and bounds.
Well, as far as AEW's plans, obviously, All In is the go-home show. But as for Calgary this week, I think it's going to be a special show. And I'm not saying that just because I'm going to be there, but it's just one of those things where I think they're doing a great job of getting back on track here with some characters. Seeing Hangman now the way we did, like it was a big question mark. What's he going to do? It's not a clear allegiance either side as to where he's going to be. You've got all these great matches in store, and the personality thing. Chris Jericho is going to be back in Canada, which is usually always fun for a ham up. This whole learning tree thing has been very interesting to watch because this stemmed from a lot of criticisms people had about Chris still being on TV. And I always thought about this last night too. I was like, wow, John Cena's retiring, but Chris Jericho is still going. A guy that started well before Cena is going to go likely after Cena as well.
Way before. Yeah. Oh, long after Cena. I mean, they're just different people. That's all I'll say. Jericho's living the life he wants to live, and pro wrestling is still a big part of his life. He loves doing it. And he's got a promoter who will work with him and feature him, which he's coming in, he's doing this new character, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, it's a polarizing character. I know people who don't like it. I know people who think it's brilliant. So it's done better than most segments on the show when it comes to ratings. So the idea that he's turning people off, I don't see any evidence of that. It's not like anything's knocking him dead. They don't have a, Liv Morgan angle like WWE right now, where I can look at something and go like, man, this one's knocking it dead.
Last thing to touch base here on with AEW, as we talk to Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer and WrestlingObserver.com. Dave, MJF has made the big turn back to a heel. This just fits like a glove, doesn't it? This makes more sense.
Yeah, because he's got way more, all of his top opponents were baby faces, so it just made sense for him to be a heel. Plus, I mean, I think he never wanted to be a face. It was just kind of something that happened. I mean, the audience basically took him there, and they couldn't really fight it, and they needed a top baby face. I mean, now with Will Ospreay and Swerve, who they're really grooming as the top baby faces, the Adam Cole return is going to be interesting. I will say that, because he left as a heel. He was the one who turned on Max. What do? Do they just drop that after all that build? Does Adam Cole go babyface because people are going to be sympathetic upon his return? I mean, there's so many questions when it comes to his thing. But, Max's big opponent is Ospreay and is right now and should be Swerve down the line. And it's much better for him to be a heel at that point.
All right, Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer, WrestlingObserver.com. Always a pleasure to have you, Dave. Before we let you go, as always, we like to check in and find out what are the stories people can read about that you've written in the last week. I mean, obviously this week coming will be a lot about Cena and some of the things we've discussed here. But
Cena and Money in the Bank and everything like that. Yeah, this last week, just all of the major stuff. I mean, as far as it was real heavy on AEW and their pay-per-view and things that surrounded the pay-per-view, including, the show in Japan that they're doing now. And
we didn't even talk about this. Yeah, the Wrestle Dynasty
on January 5th at the Tokyo Dome. And the beginnings of G1 and AEW's coming up at the finish line. I mean, I just don't know I don't know if they're going to win the race, they're going to finish in the pack, or they're going to, I don't want to say lose the race, but it's like, like the future of AEW, if they get the right deal, is that they are a success, even with, all the spending and all the criticism. We just kind of look at all of the different things that's going on there. And, I feel they're more organized now as far as certainly the top level. At the top, I can really see watching the TV a lot more focused than I could before. And we needed that, because, they were, they're in a tough spot because they have to compete with a strong as hell WWE, and it's difficult. But there's a positive in the sense of WWE setting the standard of the value of wrestling rights. And if they can come along and go, hey, we're offering wrestling and we can offer it at a better price per viewer than those guys have, perhaps, they can still get a great deal. And all accounts are probably going to get a good deal, but we'll see how good that is. But if it's, a good enough deal to be profitable like WWE, it's like, it's all the worrying is over, like all the stuff of, can they afford to lose money, blah, blah, blah. They won't be losing money if they get the right deal.
Do we have a deadline for when the TV renewal rights are going to be coming up for their current deal?
In what sense? What date is? In what sense? I mean, I guess if there's a deadline, it'd probably be September, October.
Well, I guess before they can start talking to other people.
They can talk to other people now.
Okay.
Yeah, they did not get the deal done before the exclusive is up. They did not get the deal done. So AEW can talk to anyone and everyone. But the real interesting thing to me is Canada, it's been on Sportsnet. WWE's been on Sportsnet forever. AEW's been on TSN. The thing is WWE's going off Sportsnet. So now you have the Sportsnet want to keep wrestling. If they do, they're probably going to go with AEW. I mean, that would make sense. And the same thing in the UK when you have, and it's funny because in the UK, the station that they're on in the UK, and the UK is a big money market for wrestling rights. The station that WWE is on is TNT Sports. which is owned by the same people who are affiliated with AEW. So could they get a better money deal and go live on TNT Sports? Although, Tony likes ITV. But I mean, like, and in India is probably India is the biggest question mark, because India is the number one market outside the United States for rights. And India, which has had wrestling on TV, WWE on TV forever, is losing WWE on TV because of the Netflix deal. So now you've got a station that has done tens of millions of viewers with wrestling. Do they want to give up wrestling and just say it's not WWE, we don't want it? Or do they go, you know what? We can keep our wrestling, spend less money, and we have the best. In India, we're number one. We have the best outlet for viewers, because Netflix isn't big in India. So it's really interesting. Like I said, next year for AEW, I mean, they're not going to surpass WWE or anything like that. That's not even going to come close. But it can be a very pivotal year as far as deal making. It may not be their best year for fan interest, but for deal making, this next year in AEW could be really big.
Well, I don't know how much you've been following along with the Canadian media landscape here, but it's funny because Rogers, who owns Sportsnet, they scooped a bunch of WBD programming from a company called Chorus Entertainment up here, and that has actually put Chorus in a massive content searching mode. I mean, they got networks of their own they got to fill. I mean, I won't get into the business semantics of it because even I don't know all of it, other than this was once a $26, $27 a share company that's now worth about 22 cents a share right now. So they're struggling to find content. So maybe an offer comes from something like that up here in Canada as well. Or, like you said, Rogers looks to fill that WWE hole and put it on Sportsnet. So, I mean, there's 100 possibilities, and that's just one country. So, yeah, anything's possible for AEW's future now with this Netflix deal. All right, Dave, thank you. As always, we're out of time this week, but always a great pleasure talking to you. And next week, I'll give you the full rundown from what happened here in Calgary.
Okay, cool.
All right, thank you very much. Coming up next, you're going to meet a guy who has been making a name for himself here in Alberta and recently appeared in GCW. Wrestler turned promoter Harlon Abbott is on the show next.
Thanks for listening to McGuire on Wrestling. To be a part of the show, follow our social media or leave a tip. Head to McGuireShow.com. This is McGuire on Wrestling. If you like McGuire on Wrestling, you need to subscribe to the free McGuire on Wrestling podcast feed. Not only do you get access to the show a day early, but you also get free bonus content every week. Share a laugh with Mitch and Dimitri on the alternate commentary table.
Oh, I'm Cody Rhodes. Look at me. Now, if this was Damian Priest, he'd apologize. He probably would have apologized.
Follow along with the film career of one of wrestling's biggest stars with We've Seen a Movie.
Basically, I'm just watching John Cena play his wrestling character.
If John Cena was a raging alcoholic Atlantic City mooch before this.
Get all these shows, exclusive interviews, and more for free by subscribing to McGuire on Wrestling, wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome back to McGuire on Wrestling.
It's another McGuire on Wrestling Indie Spotlight, as I'm proud to share with you a guy I've known since, God, how long ago was that when we first met?
Holy, almost, gotta be almost 20 years now, yeah. 15 years, 20 years, yeah.
Been a lot of those conversations lately.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know what to call you. Do I call you Harlan? Do I call you Metal? Do I call you Justin? Where do we go?
You can call me Harlan.
All right.
Yeah, I go by anything these days, but...
Harlon Abbott is what you're known as on the scene,
yes, sir.
But also behind the scenes, one of the driving forces behind Top Talent Wrestling in Edmonton, Alberta. And I was telling you before we got started, man, Winnipeg gets a lot of props, Ontario gets a lot of props. I mean, BC, obviously, there's tons of great wrestling everywhere, but the Alberta scene seems to really be hitting its stride now, a real resurgence. We're down here at Dungeon Wrestling in Calgary tonight, but you are running shows up in Edmonton now, and shows like I don't think I've seen in a long time, at least 10 years or so. And beyond that, like the numbers are getting huge. The venues are great. Like, tell us about what it's like to be in indie wrestling in 2024.
Man, there's no better time to be an independent wrestler. Wrestling is on fire absolutely everywhere you go. And I think that Alberta specifically for the longest time has produced so many great athletes, but geographically where we are has been the toughest thing for us, So not very often do you get the eyes that the talent deserves or wants up in this region, right? So to be able to be a part of something like Dungeon, to be able to be a driving force for Top Talent Wrestling and be able to put these athletes on the map with these types of products that we do and the amount of effort that we put into them, I think is an incredible thing these days, you know? So I've been really, really enjoying it. And yeah, man, it's a great time to be a pro wrestler.
Let's talk about your path here. You were training about 20 years ago, like we were saying.
Yeah.
Who brought you in? Who brought you up? And how did it all start for you?
I started with wrestling when I was 13 years old. So I found a school in Edmonton, and I got to work with Chi Cruz and Phil LaFawn under a banner down there, or up there, I guess, because we're in Calgary. And by the time I was 14, 15, I was doing high school, junior high, through correspondence. So I wasn't actually going to school. I was doing it all online, and I was traveling. I was already traveling coast to coast. I was constantly in Manitoba. I was traveling all around Alberta. I was in the East Coast. So I was out in BC consistently doing television out there for NWA TRW. And yeah, wrestling's just kind of been my path, man. I've never really had a plan B or anything like that. So yeah, it's ever since then just been trying to keep up with everything and just keep pushing through. And, you know, sometimes you go through busy spells. Other times, you know, wrestling kind of went through a little bit of a dry spell where it wasn't as busy for a long time. But I've been really, really lucky that I've been able to make this a career. And, you know, I don't have a 9-to-5. I haven't had a 9-to-5 in years, you know. So between the school, between the shows, between everything, I've been really, really lucky and blessed. So
going from learning, obviously, like you said, adjusting and growing as a person, as an adult in life, you decide, hey, I want to really get into putting on shows. I think one of the last times you and I spoke at all, you were working with, was it RCW, and Jake the Snake had come through on a show.
Yeah.
And you guys came down to the station. We did a thing then, and so you decide, hey, I want to get my hands in the back end of this. Was that the best decision you made, or is it a decision you still think about every day? Like, what made you decide I want to do more than just wrestle?
You know, I think it comes down to regionally. You see so many athletes out this way, like I said, that don't get the props that they deserve. There are, and historically, I think that Alberta has produced the best wrestlers in the world. You know, going all the way back to the days of Stampede Wrestling and Stu Hart, it's just been the way that it is, right? So geographically, it's never been kind to us. It's never been friendly to us. So you see all these talents, and they just don't get the exposure that they deserve. So for me, my day-to-day is very stressful between everything. So some days I sit there and I go, man, did I bite off more than I could chew? But, you know, you get to put these men and women on a platform that gets to be exposed globally to people, you know, and that's kind of the reason why I did it. Not only for myself, but for so many of my colleagues that I work with on a daily basis that just deserve more eyes on them. So you know, some days I do sit there and wonder, like, man, was it the best idea to start this up and take on more, especially like as a professional wrestler as well. You know, I don't think my schedule has ever been busier than it is right now. You know, I can't remember the last day off that I've had from shows in terms of, like, you know, I'm constantly wrestling 3 to 4 times a week, and then the other days a week I'm training athletes at my school, so I'm literally in the ring, you know, 7 days a week these days. So you know, being able to host the shows is another layer of stress to it, but it has been really, really rewarding, and it has grown immensely. And getting to watch these guys and girls get that exposure and get to rub shoulders with athletes that, you know, otherwise they maybe never would have had a chance to work on shows with is quite the privilege, you know.
When it comes to running your own company, running your own school, trying to have your own career as well. I mean, you've had some opportunities to do some things. Some people may have seen you on TV. I saw you on AEW, I think, or was it ROH, one of the two?
Yeah.
And you've had some chances to do that. Are you focused more on still trying to propel yourself and get yourself noticed by like an AEW or something like that? Or are you focused more on what you and your company are doing with Top Talent?
No, my primary focus is me. I still have a lot of life left in wrestling and a lot of gas left in the tank, but time doesn't wait for anybody. And I've been very, very grateful and very blessed for all the opportunities that I've had recently and over the years. I've had a chance to wrestle in Mexico. I've had a chance to wrestle in the States and all over Canada, and now is busier than ever. So my primary goal will always be to get as far as I possibly can for myself as an athlete and as a professional wrestler. But in the process of that, to be able to do these shows and get that exposure, these aren't just local shows at a Legion or a gymnasium, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but they're on Triller TV. We have global exposure, so it's kind of a bonus that I have these events that I get to put together that have a platform that is able to reach so far and wide, right? So while I'm focusing on other athletes there, I still have the opportunity to get my name out there and be able to do things for myself in the process of that.
And when people first hear that, they might be like, wait, what? But again, going back to Top Talent, I say you're one of the driving forces. You do have a team around you. Like there's a whole team of you that are putting this Top Talent thing on too, right?
Yes, it takes a village. In the very beginning, I tried to do everything myself, but you get pulled so many different directions. On a show day, I have to worry about wrestling. I have to worry about athletes coming in. I have to worry about production. You have to worry about filming. You have to worry about everybody else's matches. So, over the years, I've gotten pretty comfortable with having a really good group around me that I can trust and I can put some faith in. And they've done a really great job. Everywhere from graphics to, editing and filming to booking and, all that type of stuff. So I got a really good group around me that helps out a lot, from ring crews, all that type of stuff. So it really does take a village to be able to build something successful.
We were talking before the show here, and I was mentioning how your online content I would put up against almost anybody at this point. I mean, short of, billion-dollar companies. But even then, I mean, the way people consume things now so quickly, it's if you can watch it and get the feel like you're watching something that just streamed or just aired on international pay-per-view. Like you said, this stuff is working on Triller. So, I mean, you're doing that. But to have that quality of production, to have those people around you, I don't think people fully understand how hard it can be to get people that can do all that stuff and do it right.
That is very true. There are so many moving parts to that. And even for me, as somebody going into that, the first few shows that we did, if you watch the beginning of Top Talent to where it is now, you see a constant growth, not just from the performers in the ring, but from a production standpoint, from a filming standpoint, from everything, from graphics, So we're constantly trying to grow and keep up with the curve. But there are so many different aspects to consider when putting this stuff together, But that's the only way that I could really picture this working, is that we try to stay current with everything. We want to be able to stand out. We want to be able to make sure that our production is top notch, and we're not just kind of, there's so much wrestling these days. How do you stand out, right? And I think that with our product, we do a really good job at being able to stand out, and that if you even just get to see a 15-second clip of it, you go, whoa, where is that? What is that, right? So, and that's kind of our goal.
Well, now that we're talking about how great things are going, I have to ask this question as a promoter, as an owner, as somebody who's seen a ton of things in the wrestling world throughout your career here. What's the most harebrained, hairiest, oh my God, I can't believe we got through it show you can remember?
Oh, man.
Everybody's got that one where either the ring truck broke down or the ring broke or something, but somebody's got one of those shows.
We've been really, really lucky that we haven't had, and knock on wood, it stays this way, but we haven't had too many issues. We have had a couple of shows, and one specifically I think was last December. Trying to run a show in December, close to Christmas. I think we were running December 23rd or something like that. Ridiculously close to Christmas. Flights were delayed. getting people out. There was a huge storm that happened, so cancellations were happening constantly. As I would book new flights, they would immediately cancel. So you're trying to track down, okay, can I get my money back from this? How do I get my money back from this? You get talent that sometimes, especially geographically, we're not the easiest place to get to, man. So sometimes you're trying to get guys here and they just don't make it, and sometimes people understand that, but from a consumer aspect, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you pay for a ticket, you want to see these athletes, and that's what you're promised, and if you can't deliver on that, that's the ultimate downside to being a business owner. Is you have to be able to deliver what you're committing to, right? So I would say probably our last Christmas show we did was a little bit of a nightmare for that.
Maybe shoot for the second or third rather than the 23rd.
Yeah, we've already after this last one we were like, no, we're never running that close to Christmas ever again. You think, oh yeah, everybody's got time off, and it is true, it was like minus 50 out, and we drew. It was insane, so you have people, it was lineup was around the block and it's minus 50, but it's like,
well, Edmonton people will always show up too. That's the
true.
funny thing. It doesn't matter what the weather is because they're just used to it.
And,
and there's tons of I'm working in country music now, but there's tons of bands who I've met over the years, and they prefer to come to Canada in winter because they know they're going to sell tickets because there's nothing else to do.
It's true. Yeah, summertime, everybody wants to go out and enjoy the summer, and but wintertime there is nothing else to do. You want to go to these events, right? So but maybe not so close to Christmas time next time. Who knows?
All right. Well, Harlon Abbott or my pal Justin from the last 20 years. Either way, dude, congratulations on everything that's going on, man. If people want to find out more about Top Talent Wrestling, where can they find you?
You can find us at toptalentwrestling.com. You can check out our Instagram at Top Talent Wrestling. You can check out our Twitter at Top Talent Brand. And check us out on Triller TV as well. Just search Top Talent Wrestling. We're up there, and our shows are going to be going up weekly here right away. So it's going to be a lot of fun and a busy time coming up.
My thanks to Harlon Abbott as well as Top Talent Wrestling, Dungeon Wrestling. I also got to give a shout out to Pure Power Wrestling here in Southern Alberta and Canadian Wrestling's Elite. I will be doing shows with both of them coming up later on this month and into August as well. And that's it for the show. Thank you very much for checking out McGuire on Wrestling for another week. And coming up this Tuesday, a very special guest, which I will be announcing tomorrow on our Team MOW McGuire on Wrestling Facebook page. So until then, if you ever want to reach out, you can. McGuireShow@yahoo.com. Find me at McGuire Show. Join me on 98.1 The Ranch in Lethbridge. And big thanks to all the other radio stations that support this show. Thank you for listening on CKXU-FM or streaming it or podcasting it. And thank you for listening and letting me do what I do. Until next time, play safe, drive safe. See ya.
McGuire on Wrestling. Online and on the radio. Listen to the show Mondays at 4 p.m. Mountain Time at CKXU.com, wherever you get your podcasts, and at McGuireShow.com.
Yo, Mike. Yo, Mike. It's the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. Where are you, by the way? He said hi for you. He's a good friend, but you should be here. Was he doing a podcast?
Yeah, Team MOW.
Is it more important than this?
No.
Is it? No. No, you should be here, Mike. I mean, look, we brought the title. Did the whole thing. He held the title. You don't get to hold the title. But I miss you, Mike. Best of luck, my friend. See you down the road.
See you, brother.